Hi everyone, it's Catherine and Claire, and we're here today with our Clash of Kings discussion. We're going all the way from Jon 3 to Tyrion 7, which, according to the wiki, it's chapter 23 to chapter 29. But I know that if you're doing the Tower of the Hand, I'm kind of a chapter behind because the wiki doesn't count the prologue, but Tower of the Hand does. So apologies if that's been confusing. But anyway, Jon 3 to Tyrion 7. Just a reminder that next Sunday we won't be here. We'll be actually here on Friday instead because I'm flying home to Ireland. So, you know, no internet. So we'll be going from Arya 7 to Arya 8, and we're going to go live at 8 p.m. UK time. So
that's Friday, next Friday, which is the 9th of February. Yeah.
So, so thanks, Claire, for accommodating that. So we had 7 chapters today, and for today, and we start off. I think for me this week we didn't really talk about it, actually. We were talking about polish. For me this week, I feel like it started on a high, and I don't know if any of the other chapters kind of lived. Maybe the Arya chapter, but I really loved the Jon chapter the most this week. So that's the one that I have the most to say about. And we actually have a question as well from Sonny, which we can get into. Sonny sent me a question that he wants to ask about the Jon chapter. So, Claire, take it away. What did you think of the Jon chapter?
I thought that okay, so this is where they're at Craster's Keep. So they arrive at Craster's Keep beyond the wall. And it's the haunted forest, and Craster is known as being a friend to the Watch. And immediately, sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. Immediately, Jon feels that there's something not quite right about Craster. So, just things like he's got I think it's like Jon's senses are slightly more heightened when it comes to the north or beyond the wall, and it harks back to that very first Bran chapter, where in it Jon's talking about the men of the Night's Watch and the wildlings, and how he seems to have an affinity with the north. So, and I do feel as though his senses are very much heightened in this chapter. But he feels that Craster's got this. So we're introduced to this horrible character, and Jon's that, you know, he's got a cold smell about him, and he seems to have this awful setup with his kind of daughter wives. But he also has really, really terrible defenses about, you know, around the keep. So it's just this muddy, like, dike all the way around, and it's like, you know, Jon's not impressed at all by how terrible the defenses are. So Craster is the first wildling that Jon's ever met in his life, and that made me, and I've just put in to ask a question, although I think I did remember later on whether or not Jon ever met Osha before he left Winterfell to go to the wall. So that was after, wasn't it, when the hunting incident and everything. So Craster is indeed the first wildling that Jon has ever met.
I don't even think, like, Cat and Ned, everybody was gone by the time Osha came along, weren't they?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it was just Rob, wasn't it, that took charge in that situation. I thought it was strange that Craster also seems to get a vibe from Jon and seems to sort of recognize him as a Stark. I mean, he must just have this really, like, you know, Winterfell Stark appearance to him. The biggest thing for me in this chapter was that segment, and I remember this from the very first reread, and it being a really kind of magical part of the story, the whole story. Because we get a sense from absolutely everybody that Beyond the Wall is horrific, it's terrifying, it's the cold, well, nothing burns like the cold, and you know, you lose limbs and ears and noses and all. It's a horrifically harsh environment to be in. But in this very brief glimpse of, in the morning, Jon gets up and he goes outside, and it's the pale pink light of dawn, and you can just see this sheet of ice everywhere across everything, and it just sparkles and twinkles like ice does in that kind of light, where he thinks about it being like jewels, like emeralds and diamonds, and he starts to think about his sisters, and it just seems to be this very like magical interlude into the complete harshness of what it's like beyond the wall and Craster's, and how horrible and miserable it is there. And it just made me again think about the magic that's in the ice that we don't know about, that I think Jon can feel a little bit more because he's got these heightened senses. There's something at the end of the chapter as well where we're introduced to Gilly, and she's asking him to protect her, basically because she knows that she's carrying a boy, or she's got a very strong feeling that she's carrying a boy. And she refers to the cold gods, which to me, sorry, I just had a hair in my mouth. It was really annoying me. It's gone now. The cold gods, or the white shadows. And I just thought the cold gods sounds very close to the old gods. And we know that the first men worshipped. I'm making huge leaps here, and it's completely wrapped up in several layers of tinfoil, and very broad strokes. And quite a lot of the time at the moment, I don't really know where I'm going with it, but I'm just kind of going from what I'm reading and what I'm feeling and what I've heard and read in other places, but at like World of Ice and Fire and things like that, is that the first men worshipped the old gods, but not exactly the same gods that the children of the forest worshipped. But the agreement, the pact between them was that there was then a requirement for the first men to worship in front of the weirwood trees. But they seem to be quite similar, that kind of paganistic worshipping nature. And when but there's this thing of like when the first men arrived, they arrived in the south, didn't they? They arrived in Dawn, and then they got pushed and pushed and pushed by the Andals further and further up north. In a way, it almost sounds like they were being forced into. They could be forced into, and I suppose yes, the most inhospitable place is going to be the place where you're pushing and forcing your enemy. But it also sounds a little bit almost like it could be a pilgrimage for them. Like they started in the south, and there was this great big sort of journey, and they were pushed and journeyed further and further into the north. So maybe the cold gods were the old gods for the first men. I don't know. Who knows? But it's something to, I don't know. It's something to maybe just put a pin in at the moment, and we can kind of, I'm sure, constantly come back to this theme about the old gods and religion.
Yeah. Just hi to Sunny, AU, and Peace and hi guys. Thanks a million for joining us again.
Hello.
Can I just say that this is like oh no, you can't see it. Anyway, it's like crammed with notes. This chapter, I don't know, it was like a pinball machine in my head. It was like ding, 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 ding. There was so much in this chapter that I had been aware of, but I never really thought about. But before I go, I want to ask you, Sunny sent me a message asking a question about this chapter. Craster is giving sheep to the gods because they come so often of late. That's what he's saying. Yeah. So his question is, Sunny's question is, do the gods need blood or need boys? What are they looking for, blood for the sheep? And I have a question about this as well, because I wonder, does it have something to do with Craster's mother? And this is why they're not taking the girls. We know Craster's mother came from Whitetree, and she married, or she had a child for a ranger, brother.
Yeah, he had a crow father who we don't know who that is, do we?
No,
Yeah.
no, we don't. And I looked it up. We don't really know much about Craster. Do you know what's interesting? I tried to read through it now, whether I missed it or not, and then I went and I looked up like descriptions of Craster on the wiki. There's no description of his eye color, which is unusual. Did you see? Did you get an eye color? Anyone out there get eye color? Because I couldn't find it.
For Craster, no.
Because that might tell us something. So it's obviously something that's been deliberately held back. Because, you know, the eye color can be quite important in the books. So just something that, like if they were blue, that might be important, or gray even. So yeah, anyway. Yeah, so what do you think about the sheep? Why is he taking boys and sheep and not girls?
I think it probably is the blood. Maybe it's something to do with, like, I don't know, linked to the blood sacrifice. I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, we do know that. I'm just again thinking of like TV show here. I think in the books, it's not really determined about the in the TV show. It looks like the children of the forest are mainly female, and the others are mainly male. Although we do know, again, back in history, that there was a female other, and she became the Night's Queen.
Yeah. But is it going to be like bees, where like they only need one queen, and everybody else is kind of like a soldier bee?
Maybe.
Because why not take Craster when he was a kid? So that's, you know, she was chased off. When she came to the wall looking for help, his mother, she was chased off by the Night's Watch. Can I just say as well? Yeah, so I think you're right. I think it's blood as well. I'm sorry, Sonny, we don't have a very good answer for that, but there's so much mystery around this. Obviously, he has 19 wives. He's what, in his 50s or 60s, Craster, maybe? He's an old man, but still really, really strong. Brilliant hunter. Yeah, his keep looks a bit crap and undefended, but that's not important, obviously, because he's got this other layer of protection. Even Mance Rayder doesn't dare mess with him. And then we find out at the end of this chapter, sorry, I'm jumping around because I'm focused really on this issue with Craster, and then I'll come back to everything else. We find out at the end of this chapter that the Night's Watch knew all along.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like a plot hole, or like I can't really figure out, like they knew all along what, that he was sacrificing his kids, or that he was sacrificing his kids to actual others. I'm guessing it was just that they knew he was doing something with the boys. He was sacrificing the boys.
Yeah, I think it was, they knew he was sacrificing, not to the others.
He was just killing them.
Yeah, that it was, you know, he wanted to be king of the castle, and, you know, having power over, you know, he's got a sweet little life there. That's his rules. That's how it's done. But I think there is, yeah, I think, I don't know about, but not sure. So maybe there is a plot hole.
Here's
definitely.
My question. Yeah. Why not take Craster out years ago and like have that as a little brother outpost for Rangers? Like put like some brothers in there so you take turns. Like just get rid of him and just like, and why not, like, why be so dependent on this guy? Why not build your own little keep out there so that you can have it stop off? It doesn't, do you know what I mean? Why don't they plan that so that there's, the Rangers can have somewhere where they can, like the space station, the International Space Station, like where they go up and like they do their time and come back. Like why not? It doesn't, like, I don't know, it's just kind of, a lot of this points to the fact that I think the wall has been grossly mismanaged for over a century. I think Mormont may well be the worst leader they've ever had. And this chapter to me points that, like, I mean, what is he thinking? He's taking all of his best men to go meet Mance. Why? Go back to the wall.
Yeah.
And also later I was thinking when we get to the Tyrion chapter where Alistair is trying to plead with him, Mormont should have gone himself.
Yeah.
Like, it was that important. Why? Like,
yeah.
It doesn't. I think, to me, and we talked about this before, there's something not quite right about the way Mormont operates and the way he deals with Jon and the things he tells Jon. And again, I think Mormont knows why Jon is there. It's something to do with why he's at the wall in the first place. There's something not quite right with the Mormont story. We don't know why he joined the wall. He's a terrible leader, and he just makes terrible decisions.
Well, maybe this links to Jojen and this thing about green sight. And maybe there are more people at the wall who have the green sight and have just been guided there and told that your destiny is here at the wall and that they have to be there at this particular time where it's part of Jon's story. I don't know. I mean, it does seem to be, I think Craster is more important of a character than we know at present. At the moment, he's just a horrible grubby, and there's these questions that we have about what he's doing and what's going on. And we hear references to things like the cold gods and the white shadows, and Craster himself saying Craster serves no man. And it's like, well, you are serving something, some sort of power, because what you're doing is you're serving up your own sons.
I think there's something in his blood that's important. Sonny says the Night's Watch let Craster appease the others, or they would come to Castle Black looking for humans. This is, it throws up a huge question. Do they actually think he's sending babies to the others? Because even Mormont says they could use the boys on the wall. But it doesn't sound like they ever talked to him about that. Like sending the boys to the wall rather than, like, maybe they realized there's something wrong with those boys being at the wall. I don't know. There's something not quite.
It is. It's one of the, it's like, if you knew something like that, why wouldn't you, why wouldn't you talk about it, confront it? Definitely that would be a resource, just send them the opposite direction.
My worry is that this is going to be dropped. that we'll never have answers to this. But this is there's a lot about Craster that he's an amazing hunter, but no idea how he learned that, because I mean his mother pretty much raised him on her own. I mean, I guess he could just teach himself, and maybe there was a couple of rangers that took pity on him and showed him.
I wish we knew who his father was.
Yeah. He also mentions in this chapter two very important things: Bale the Bard and the Horn of Winter.
Yeah.
So Bale the Bard was a king beyond the wall, and he snuck into Winterfell in disguise, and what was it? He won some competition or impressed the Lord of Winterfell, and the Lord of Winterfell said that he could take any flower as a gift from Winterfell. And the next morning they go to the daughter of the Lord. They go to her bedroom, and there's a blue rose on the bed, right? At this how I remember. And no, they look all over, they look beyond the wall, they look at the wall, no, they can't find him. And then years later, this girl emerges from the crypts where she had given birth to the bastard of this king. And then she, because there was no heir to Winterfell at the time, they used the bastard. The bastard became the Lord of Winterfell. And when Bale the Bard came to take the wall and move into the north, they end up meeting. The bastard and his dad ended up meeting, and the Bael the Bard fell because he didn't want to kill the bastard. Is that right?
Yeah. So father and son. Yeah.
So there's a couple of things here, because it really does tie it. Now, it's a song and a legend and all that kind of thing, but it really does tie to Craster and Jon's story. And there's something important in the fact that it's a bit strange to me that they share this legend. Like, I don't like, where does Craster get his culture from? Do you know what I mean? Like that they share this legend from both sides. They both seem to have the same story. So yeah, just a bit of a tangent, but I just think it is interesting that he's the one to mention it in this chapter. And of course, the Horn of Winter, which we are dying to see.
I think there is something also with Craster that, and this will come up later, and I think it's within I think it's a conversation that Sam has with Gilly much later on, when they're sort of on the run. Well, not on the run, but they're traveling down south, and this was something that Anne, Sweet YFT, brought up years ago, and it was one of those, like, a really casual throwaway comment in a conversation that Sam has with Gilly, where he's describing the baby, her baby's not her baby, the swapped baby that she's got, so Mance and Dalla's baby, and he's referring to the like the heritage, the parentage of the baby, and he says, and again, it's very casual, and you would, if you didn't sort of stop and read the word, you'd think, what the hell? And it's never mentioned, it's never referred to again, but he refers to the baby being the product of Mance Rayder and Craster's, something about Craster's grandson, and you read it again, and it's like, hang on a minute, what you're saying there is that, or what he seems to be saying very casually, is that Dalla and Val are Craster's daughters. Like somehow they escaped, or blah blah blah, or whatever. So I mean, I don't know, maybe they do have some kind of magic. I mean,
well, there's not that many daughters there. Like 19. Well, where did he get the wife from in the first place? The original wife. Who was she? I mean,
yeah,
who the original wife is, unless he married his mother, which isn't impossible. But yeah, I'm just fascinated by some of the comments here. AU says, is Brandon Rivers Craster's dad? I think that's a good contender for sure. If it's not a Stark, then yeah, I think that would make sense. And Mormont is a Bad Lord commander because Brandon Rivers speaks to him through the Ravens. That's interesting, AU. Yeah. There's definitely something not quite right with the way he makes decisions. He doesn't think about consequences. And P. San says, I find it odd that no one ever mentions Brandon Rivers at the Wall, but would have tipped the reader off to who the three-eyed raven was early. Yeah. And Ion says, lol, I came in and the first thing I hear is marry his mother. Welcome, it's Sunday. We're talking about Craster. Any Craster tidbits you have, Ion, please share. Oh yes, the Mance thing I want to talk to you about before we move on. So we've talked a lot about how a lot of the stories about Bran the Builder and the different Brandons over time might link to our Bran Stark. That they might be him going back in time and planting all these legends or something. So Bael the Bard could be Mance as well. It might tie in with what you just said about Craster's daughters or something, because Mance will do that later. He'll he'll sneak into Winterfell. We'll find out. So it's kind of a similar story there as well. That like we get a lot of history repeating itself. And the other thing I wanted to mention, it just occurred to me that The Winds of Winter is the next book, hopefully, and just that the horn of winter is a wind instrument. I just wonder, will that become a big player as a magical instrument in the next book?
I think that Craster and the sons that he's sacrificed to the others will have a much bigger part to play, even after Craster's demise, there will be a bigger part to play. And a lot of people, one of the big questions of the whole series is, who are what do the others want? What do the others want? Why are they marching south? Maybe it's because there's the baby that Gilly had that has escaped their grasp was like the 100th baby sacrificed or something, like, it's a special baby, it's a special number, and that's maybe all they're marching for, is to get hold of, you kind of messed up the production line, that's what we're after, this is going to make all the difference, this is some kind of magical 100th baby.
Well, whatever about how far Mance is, the others are way closer to the wall than anyone thinks.
Yes.
They're very close to Craster, but also Craster didn't see Benjen, or at least that's what he says. So, and I don't know why he'd lie. He owns up to seeing Royce, so why lie about Benjen unless he saw something happen to Benjen? And he can't say anything, but he didn't see Benjen, which suggests that Benjen went missing way closer to the wall than they originally thought. So that's just something to throw out there. The other thing I wanted to mention was Gilly, and how does she know she's having a boy? Does it feel different when you're having a boy?
I think a few of the other women have said you're having a boy because of probably is because of the way she's carrying and just that complete fear of this is what's going to happen. And I mean the interesting thing is she's wearing Sam's cloak, which kind of feels like a wedding already, like he's claimed her already. You're right though about Mormont. Why the hell did he give Craster an axe?
I don't know.
That's a really ridiculous thing to do.
I don't know how Craster has managed to get, it would make sense if Brandon Rivers is his dad, because then he has protection from both sides. Then, there's something, the way the Night's Watch have allowed him to continue operating is very, very strange. And even the way the wildlings, what do the wildlings know about this guy? I guess if we ever find anything about Craster, it'll be through whatever the wildlings know about him. It'd be interesting to see, does Osha know much about him?
At the moment, all we know is that he doesn't feel that he needs protection. He's got terrible defenses. He's somehow protected from all sides, it looks like, from the wildlings, from the cold gods or the white shadows, and from the Night's Watch as well. So he's definitely in a unique position here, but this is all we know at the moment, is that he's creepy and he's serving up his male children. I just want to ask, while Iron's here, if you've got any thoughts about Dalla and Val being related to Craster, and maybe they're kind of like daughter wives who escaped when they were young. Has this got anything to do with Grayscale? Which is another.
While you're thinking about that, Ian, I'm going to say to Claire, you missed something very important.
Oh, what I missed?
1000 is mentioned again.
Really? Wow. Where's that?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I was like, I won't say anything because you're going to mention it. I'm pretty sure John says it. It felt like 1,000 years since he was at home or something. Or when he sees the snow and He's talking about
He's
now
thinking
I
about.
say it now and I could be totally wrong.
Is this when he's thinking about Sansa and
yeah.
Arya?
Yeah, I feel so sad for John as well. He thinks about everybody,
Mm.
and nobody really thinks about him except for Arya. I think Ion.
There's a bit Ion in Feast for Crows later on when Gilly and Sam are travelling down to Old Town, and in a very casual conversation, Sam is referring to the parentage of the baby, and he refers to the baby being Mance's son and Craster's grandson, which can only mean, if you calculate it, that Val and Dalla are related to Craster if he's the grandfather. It's really weird. It's one of those things that you just read and go, oh, you know, describing somebody's parentage, but then it's like, hang on, where did Craster come into this?
Mm-hmm.
When we get to it, it's way down the line, and I'm sure it's in Feast. It was Sweet YFT years ago that stumbled across that, and it was like, wow, that opened up a whole new. You know, did they escape? Could they have had? I don't know. Weren't they shunned? Wasn't there something about them the girls being, the daughters being shunned because they've got grayscale? They were like chained up or tied up or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I don't know. I
can't find the 1000 reference. Maybe I dreamed it. Maybe I was just.
And Val and Dalla are seen by the wildlings as being like, you know, kind of magical ice priestesses. So if that's the case, and they've got some kind of like power in terms of ice magic. My hope is that Val is like the complete opposite of Mel, and she's like the ice goddess, whereas Mel is the fire goddess, and with them being such close proximity to the wall as well.
I mean, if he has 19 wives, I mean, how many of them, like, if all of them got pregnant within like every other year, there should be loads more people around. They don't always have boys.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm miscalculating, but if he's an old guy. Like, I mean, if he's been at this for 30 or 40 years, there should be a lot more kids around. So it would make sense if there's
in answer to the original question, I think it's probably an element of both. I think it's because they're males, and we don't know anything at all about whether these white shadows, the others, are alive, whether they're dead, whether they can reproduce, what kind of culture, anything really. But I think it's more to do with they're going to him specifically to kind of harvest his male children.
Yeah.
Because of the blood. I think it's blood first, and then the fact that they're boys come second.
And Sonny says maybe that's why Stannis wanted Jon to marry her. Yeah, I think there's definitely. I think Stannis is savvy enough as well that he needed to bring the wildlings on board. But I'm hoping we get a lot more answers, because so far we've more questions than answers, even at this point going into Winds. And sometimes it feels like we have more questions about the North than we do even about like Valyria and dragons. Do you know, like they're just there's so much. But yeah, so that's Jon 3, and for me, definitely the chapter I had the most notes on, folks. So
yes.
And very little to say for me in the next chapter. How about you?
Well, I've got a soft spot for Theon and Asher and the Ironborn. Actually, one of my cats is called Asher, so I've got quite a few notes in that. This is Asher's a big character.
She is, so that's why this is so long, right? This chapter, nothing much happens, but we learn more about her, I guess.
I've made a few notes, but I've only highlighted a couple of things, which means that, you know, a lot of it is just building up Theon in this chapter as being everyone is a stranger to him, but he needs a crew and he needs to prove himself, and he's kind of, you know, he's doing his usual entitled cockiness, you know, this, you know, almost imagining himself being the king of the Iron Islands already. So he's this is, you know, setting up Theon's story arc yet again, but this is the chapter where he meets Asha, and she's quite fruity with him, and she's trying to get the measure of him from the perspective of somebody that's not his sister, which was quite so. And the fact that he really takes offense at that and promises to like pack her off to the Silent Sisters when all's said and done. Which makes me, again, when anybody says that, and it says a few times in the story, you know, when women are chastised or daughters are being kind of like, you know, at White Harbour, there's a scene with Manderley and one of his daughters or granddaughters, you know, where it's a farce and they're putting it on, although I don't think the child knows, and she's kind of like, you know, yeah, we're for the Starks, and you know, we've got this. Yeah, anyway, I'm going right off on a tangent here, but the point is, in that conversation, he says that if she doesn't shut up, he'll pack her off to the Silent Sisters, which makes me wonder, are the Silent Sisters harboring somebody that we don't know? You know, has somebody in the past been packed off to the Silent Sisters? And if they have, who might that be? I think the main culprit, possibly, or the main contender, would probably be Joanna Lannister. But there are a number of other women at that kind of Illuminati part of history.
Why do you say Joanna Lannister?
Because of the scene with Jamie when he's having his dream and he's doing his vigil when his father dies, and he has this dream of his mother coming to see him, and I think the Silent Sisters had just been around as well at the same time.
So you don't think she might be hanging out with a Shara Dane? And
yeah, they're all Silent Sisters.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah. It just makes me wonder who might have been packed off to the Silent Sisters before in the past, because it's a phrase it's one of those things that's like, you know, the others take you go, you know, you're going to be sent off to the Silent Sisters. It's that sort of like.
And historically, I mean, that's what happened to women all the way up into the 20th century. All the way through history, women were just packed off across all cultures. So it wouldn't be that surprising if we do have somebody that's being packed off. It'd be actually more surprising if we didn't. It's kind of like what you call it, the mad woman in the attic.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's always going to be, there has to be somebody hiding somewhere. I mean, there always is, isn't there?
There's got to be this mythical place where you get packed off to or sent to. It's like in I don't watch soap operas anymore, but in EastEnders there used to be that phrase like, if they've gone to Manchester, and it's like, oh, never to be seen again. But it's
now I'm wondering who you are.
I'm from that mythical place, Manchester.
Yeah. There goes my is Joanna Lannister in disguise theory. Oh well.
But I like Asha. She's one of my favourite female characters, and I do like the fact that she's really got a good measure of Theon. And it's still, you know, there isn't anything in here that says that she hates him or she isn't ever going to support him. You know, she says things like, I've highlighted where she says, you know nothing, which obviously is similar to Ygritte when she says to Jon Snow that famous, you know nothing. But he again, to Theon, you know nothing and no one. You've been 10 years a wolf. But I think I get the feeling that underneath all of that, she kind of feels a bit sorry for him. But yeah, he's like, he can't believe that he's been hoodwinked by his sister. Couple of things that I want that jumped out at me in this chapter is I was surprised that in my mind, Euron had been away for years and years and years and years, like a long time. In this chapter, Asha references Euron as being away for 2 years. That's not that long. So yeah, I don't know why I thought he'd been away. He'd been like, you know, it was when he comes back that it's like, oh, he's been away for so many years. It's not really that long.
He probably goes and comes a lot, though.
Yeah. He's probably always kind of, you know, on his missions. The other thing for me is, I mean, obviously in this, we get a good sense of who the Ironborn are. So we get introduced to other names and other families like the Harlaws and the Good Brothers and the Botleys, and the culture, you know, the finger dancing and just the fact that everything's fish stew, very like, you know, however many courses of fish stew. But the big thing is we get reference in this chapter to the sea stone chair and the fact that, again, it's this oily black stone. So we've had something already with the pyromancers, I think it was, with the alchemists when Tyrion was leaving and everything. It was all that oily black stone. And again, the sea stone chair is oily black stone. And again, I think I always thought that the Ironborn just found this chair already in some throne room on Pike. This is the first time that I've really thought about it. It was actually found on the shore by the first men, or the, you know, the equivalent of the Ironborn's first men. So it sounds more like it was kind of washed up rather than already there on the islands. It was kind of washed up on the beach, on the shore. So where the heck does this sea stone chair come from? That's a massive mystery that we're not going to be able to solve in this discussion, but
or in this series probably.
Yeah. Was there another race there before the first men? Was there another race there that represents the Ironborn? They've got a very, very different religion and a different culture to the rest of the mainland or the Greenlands. So
they are because I was thinking through this chapter, I was like, there's not much to say about this chapter, but it is a lot of world building, and Ian pointed that out, that's what Gurm is good at. But I think for it, like they're overrepresented, I feel, in the series. Like we have 4 POVs from the Iron Islands. We don't even have any from Highgarden, right? We don't even have any really, like we've 1 or 2 from Dorne, kind of.
Yeah.
So like there's not like there's something like it's not just Theon and Asha. There's Victorian and Damphair, and like there's something big about the Iron Islands for sure. They are for the size and for the culture and everything, they seem to be overrepresented in the series in terms of the amount of POVs they have compared to everybody else. Even like if you think about it, like we only have Jon and Sam and Bran in the north, and that's like everything north of the wall and everything north are just those 3 POVs, and yet, like, you know, we're actually going to have less at the north now than potentially, because I'm still of the opinion we may not get Jon POVs again. So there's just something, you know.
It's strange because on the other side of the island, of the continent, you've got the Ironborn on the west, and then on the east you've got the Stoneborn, and we know absolutely nothing really about Skagos. So I'm really, really looking forward to finding out more about that. Actually,
that Durham wants to write a Vikings book through the Iron Islands. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there is a sense that, as rough and gruff as they are around the edges, there's a genuine affection for them being the underdog, I think, and underestimated at every turn. But there's a lot of magic there as well with Victorian and Euron. Pisan says, didn't one of the Arryn sisters Littlefinger talks about to Sansa get sent to the Silent Sisters after she ran off with a singer or something? I just don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a few references to people being sent off to the Silent Sisters in Manchester. Yeah.
Yeah. What do I have here really? Yeah, I was interested in Asha saying that she always wanted a castle, and I just wonder, is this a hint that Asha is going to change the Iron Islands and what they look like? And that happens in island nations. History can change very quickly through one leader because it's very small. Happened in Ireland over and over again. So it's quite possible she could completely reinvent the culture there, for sure.
Yeah.
It even happened with the Vikings as they married into places and they changed, or they became, whatever happened either way. Like, the only thing that I thought was interesting was when Theon is getting drunk at the end and he stumbles on the bridge, and it's the bridge where his dad will die later on.
Yeah.
I thought that was quite nice, and I wondered, would it be a metaphor for his journey to ruling the Iron Islands potentially?
Yeah.
I don't have a strong opinion either way, whether it'll be him or Asha. I kind of feel like it would be nice if they did it together, maybe at the end.
Yeah.
And just in general, Balon's plan in this chapter, sending them all up along the coast and eventually into the north. I kind of feel like he's out of touch, maybe, or maybe he is in touch with what's happening on the mainland. I don't know. Like, does he know what's happening in terms of what's going on?
I don't think Theon knows more, doesn't he, than Balon, and he's questioning his father's tactics. I don't know if Balon's really that interested in anything more than securing himself this crown by just raiding the Stony Shore. I don't think he's that interested in going that far into the north. I don't really think he's thought a lot through. I think he's just seen this as the north is unoccupied. Winterfell's got like a 9-year-old kid sitting in there at the moment. It's him and the Maester, and that's it. Or, well, even if they don't know those details, they know that Robb, the Wolf King, isn't there, and that he's off fighting the Lannisters. So they just see this as an opportunity to kind of make massive gains, and for him to sort of secure this position as King of the Iron Islands.
You're painting your nails, aren't you?
Yeah, can you tell? I'm I'm actually going to put cupcake polish, very good looking. I'm taking this one off.
Yeah, I could just tell. I was like, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I kind of just at the end of this chapter, I was kind of this is our second chapter from the Iron Islands, and we've learned a lot in the space of 2 chapters, because we didn't get any representation in Game of Thrones. And I just wondered, in general, what you think the end game is with the Iron Islands in the series, or like, is it all about just getting Euron into position, or Victorian, or do you think Theon and eventually Asha will be key to events in the end game? Have you thought much about the Iron Islanders? Because I haven't really.
Not really in terms of end game. I just think the reason that they're important is because breaking it down to the basic simple components of this, potentially the story of Ice and Fire, and the fact that we've talked about these elements before, and water, and the fact that their god is all about, the drowned god, and it's all relating to this element of water, is why the Ironborn, and krakens and ships, and this is why the Ironborn are a big part of the story. But whether it means that they will be part of the kingdoms at the end, whether Asha will, modernize them into being part of, like, this new way of kind of, power, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's just it's something that I I'm not going to talk about the leaked Winds of Winter chapter, don't worry.
Mhm.
But there was one from the Ironborn, and
Yeah.
I think it might be one of my favorite chapters of all time.
Yeah.
And it's
Forsaken.
just, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fantastic. Anyway, we won't talk about that because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who's avoiding Winds of Winter spoilers. Anyway, although at this stage, I'd say everybody's reading them because they're just dying to know what's going to happen. So we move into, sorry, Claire, what were you going to say?
Clare multitasking like a pro. Yeah. Yeah. Got to be done on a Sunday night. And Iron Throne saying that he read Dying in the Light prologue yesterday, and there's a novel's worth of world building just in the prologue. Yeah. This is we're just continuing the world building. And we're halfway into Clash. So yeah.
It is still very much a world building book in a lot of ways, especially for like, Dragonstone and the Iron Islands and Karth and things like that, and even the North now as we go further into the North. All right, so we get the first of our 2 Tyrion chapters. I feel like I very little to say about the last Tyrion chapter tonight, but I have a bit to say about this, particularly to do with Lancel and how he discovers him. And I need to apologize for my absent-mindedness last week, because last week I was wondering what did Tyrion do with the poison. I completely forgot that he poisons Cersei and gives her the trots, the runs. Yeah. I don't know how you say it politely. Bad dose of diarrhea, basically, so that she is distracted. But before they do that, he does it while they're having this very warm moment, because like me, they cannot get over how stupid Stannis and Renly are being, fighting one another while King's Landing is almost like on its knees. It's struggling so bad, and Tywin is further than they are and would, they could easily take it now if they needed to, but they're too busy fighting one another. And Tyrion rightly concludes that there's no way they're going to join together and create a host, because they just hate each other too much. So, while they're having this warm moment, he poisons Cersei, and we realize later it's because he wants to have this audience with the small council and see Cleos Frey and hear Robb's treaty and give his own terms as to what he wants back. I have to say, he says that he says a couple of things. There's a good lot that Tyrion wants. He says that he wants all of the main houses in the north to send a child to King's Landing, to send one of their children, and where they don't have sons, they can send a daughter, and they'll all be looked after as long as everybody does what they're told. And he said something about 2 Lannisters being worth 4 Northmen. Just that idea that they're constantly underestimating the Northerners. He said he'll send Ned's bones as a token of good faith, and that he won't send ice. And as he's saying that, there's Ilan Payne has ice just resting on his shoulders, and it just makes me so angry. Ice makes me more angry than direwolves. That's how I get so angry when I think about what they did to ice. But anyway, I know that's shocking to some people. I know if anything happened to Ghost, I'd be devastated. I mean, I am wearing my Ghost Jon Snow t-shirt, so I do love Ghost. But the big thing is he's sending all the Lannister guards away, and he asks Varys to send a mummer, a thief. What else is there? A mummer, a thief, and a murderer among the Lannister guards, so that they can.
Yeah, who is that?
I don't remember this. I really have such blank spots.
These 4 people that are basically Bronze recruited as Tyrion's men, or Bronze men. So a thief, a poisoner, a mummer, and a murderer.
What's that all about? What happens to them? Does anyone know? Can anyone remind you? I mean, I'm sure we'll find out very soon because it'll be like the poison last week. I just can't remember this at all.
Is this the...
Again, you gave me a heart attack. This is the second night tonight.
Oh, what are they called? There's two, like, rogue, not the Brotherhood Without Banners, but you've got the Bloody Mummers and...
I have complete blank. I've complete blank. I don't know.
Because that's a Dothraki.
Anybody help us out?
It's a real kind of ragtag band of...
You mentioned them not long ago. Oh crap!
Well, the nickname is the Bloody Mummers, isn't it? But they're actually called... Oh,
is it definitely this? Is it definitely this force?
Is out someone. Tyrion, in the comments talking about Tyrion saying that he's not been in King's Landing very long, but you've got to remember he was on the road as well when he went up to the wall, and and then he went to the Vale with Cat. But
so I have a complete.
There's something companions. There's something companions.
The brave companions.
Brave companions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So
Barbara.
Is that
Hi, Barbara. Maybe they are Varys's group then. The brave companions. But doesn't
he ask Varys to source them? No, did I misread that? I thought he asked Varys.
Bran. Yeah, but Varys. No, Varys. Potentially could be part of this. So he may have put. Even though Bran's chosen these men for Tyrion, the fact that Varys knows that it's a thief, a poisoner, a mummer, and a murderer. I think he has something to do with maybe creating this group. So maybe Varys has, maybe they're Varys's men. I just put a kind of highlighting like who are these four?
Yeah, I just have a complete blank on this. So that's probably who they are then. Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a good plan, I think. Whatever the plan is with them, it is a good plan to send them out because it kind of kills two birds with one stone. He's taken away Cersei's personal army. There's a couple of things here as well. He said that, the Alistair thing. I'm not going to go on too long about it because I mentioned in the John chapter, I think this is all Mormont's fault for sending someone that nobody, like he's the least likable person, Alistair. And it doesn't matter that he's like, it doesn't matter how much he believes in it. He cannot convince somebody. He's no charisma, no charm. People instantly don't warm to him. And it just shows how there's a lack of insight with Mormont, like reading social cues where, I mean, anyone who would have seen Tyrion and Alistair together would know they wouldn't get on.
Yeah.
So sending him to King's Landing is just pointless. And he had no idea that he would be talking to Tyrion.
Yeah, exactly. He wouldn't have known.
Tyrion is the most reasonable of the Lannisters.
Yeah.
Even by reputation.
Yeah.
He would have been lucky to meet Tyrion. But it's just this idea that everybody knows the Lannisters are terrible. We get that like with the in the Arya chapter, all the people talking about how they miss Aerys. Nobody liked the Baratheons. Nobody likes the Lannisters. So why are you risking this very important mission? And again, it probably comes back to the fact that Mormont is not in power. It is not running things. But begs the question, why didn't Aemon talk to Mormont about sending more people? I mean, how pressing is this issue? Like, shouldn't they be sending? I just feel like they should have like a block of like Night's Watch men coming in with the cloaks, the whole lot, and like really make a visual effect of this. If it's that important.
Mormont's priorities seem to be all over the place, don't they?
But everybody's like Aemon Targaryen. What advice is he giving up there? I don't know. It's a bit strange. yeah, Pycelle then. They visit Pycelle. It's hilarious, this. They visit Pycelle, and Pycelle basically reveals two big things. Well, obviously Tyrion knew that he was the one who betrayed him. And now we find out that he's sleeping with women, but also he reveals that he was the one who encouraged Ares to open the gate before the sack of King's Landing. And he also reveals that John Arryn was going to send Robert Arryn to Dragonstone, which we've heard a lot since Game of Thrones. And it made me wonder, because Littlefinger obviously and Lysa are behind John Arryn's death, is the fact that they were moving very quickly to send Robert Arryn to Dragonstone, is that what pushes Littlefinger to kill him?
Yeah.
Because that's Stannis making a move for the throne, right?
Yeah.
It's getting a Littlefinger. Otherwise, John Arryn may have been all right. But Littlefinger is when he decides that he's going to take Robert to Dragonstone. That's when Littlefinger is like, no, that's going to mess with my plans. Because Lysa will be completely, like, there won't be any use for Lysa at that stage if they have the heir to the Eyrie in Dragonstone. So that's just that kind of, because I still think there's a lot of treason, but I think that was a lot of this starts with that treason between John Arryn and Stannis, the move there to get Robert potentially off the throne, or at least get his heirs off the throne. So yeah, so that was all I really had. But he says that, oh yeah, and Varys, Pycelle I think says that Varys knew who murdered Robert, which means Tyrion can't trust anyone. He was kind of hoping that it would have been Littlefinger or Varys and that he might be able to manipulate Pycelle, but he's no one. And he says that Tywin probably would have hung them all and put their heads out in the wall. Well, first of all, what's the implications of Varys knowing who killed Robert? Are there any implications to that? And second of all, do you think Tywin would have killed them all and put their heads out in the wall? Sorry, I'm asking two big questions.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just can't get, like, Pycelle is such a sneaky shit. And I do like this scene where he gets his he gets his beard shaved off, and that's his power, because he's constantly doing this with his beard. And he's very quick to drop Varys and Littlefinger in the shit, like, immediately. And all he's saying is, it's for the realm, and it's for Lannister. But he's betrayed so many hands before in the past that, like, it doesn't surprise me that Pycelle was the first one that Tyrion goes for and gets him locked up. But I don't know. I don't know in answer to you. Two questions.
Yeah, no, I just wonder, would Tywin see them as working in their favor? Or, I mean, it's kind of better the devil you know sometimes with Littlefinger and Varys, which is why Tyrion is keeping Varys close, because it's hard to see Varys's motivations. It's easier to see Littlefinger's, and that's Littlefinger's biggest weakness. It's his narcissism, and it's so self-serving, everything he does. But Varys is a really hard one to pin down. We have a lot of chat here that I'm missing. Barbara said, Brown found them and they end up breaking Jamie out of prison, but it goes very bad. Okay, thanks, Barbara. This is why I need a reread. I can't remember any of this. P. Sand says, I don't think Mormont necessarily expected King's Landing to send men. Part of sending Torn was so he couldn't hate on Jon, which is even a worse reason, because that means he wasn't going to look for any help or raise the alarm. That's not the main objective at all. And I suppose that kind of makes sense. Like, why not send Alistair if he really wants to spread the message that there's a danger at the wall? It doesn't really matter where you go. Like, he doesn't necessarily have to go to King's Landing to prove the point. He can go to all the main northern houses and do a little kind of like, you know, a little tower tour, if you like, and tell people this is what's happening. Like, why not go to the Manderleys, the Starks, everybody, or send ravens? Like, he could have just sent ravens, right? Which I think he does later, or no, Mormont doesn't do that later. Who sends the ravens later that Stannis responds to? Is that John? Or is that earlier? I feel like it's earlier. Okay, so P-Sand also says that also gives Littlefinger the choice reason to convince Lysa to kill Jon Arryn. Exactly. It keeps his hands clean. It just plays into so many, it plays in so well for him. It also, I still think that Robert Arryn is his son. So that's he's only pissed off with Littlefinger.
He's very, I mean, he goes for the big key characters, doesn't he, Littlefinger? So he's taken out Jon Arryn.
Yeah.
He's taken out Joffrey.
Yeah.
He's, you know, and he, I think you're absolutely right, and Ned, and he moves at the you know, he sees a threat to his plans, and that's it.
But also,
you know.
in this chapter, he reveals that he actually is more sore about the trick with Marcella. That he said, leave me out of your plans next time Marcella was supposed to go to the Eyrie. So he's actually sore about that. And I said that to you last week, that I think that's the thing that got him the most excited last week, is the fact that Marcella would be marrying his heir. You know?
Yeah, he's definitely pissed off about that.
Yeah, definitely pissed off about that.
Yeah.
And Ian says there are more treasons than reasons. That's absolutely.
That's true, and they happen more often than the seasons.
Absolutely, yeah. So, so Pycelle then, did you have anything on Pycelle here?
No, just that you can't trust these Meisters. No. Honestly, I mean, you know, there's the bit that comes up later on with Lewin that just makes you think.
Do you think Pycelle is a Lannister, or was a Lannister?
Actually, a Lannister, yeah, maybe. I mean, they give up their family names, and so I mean, the whole thing about the Order is it's supposed to be about the realm, isn't it? You know, they give up the. I actually asked Kyle this week or earlier last week. Kyle and Gemma are doing these really good podcasts at the moment, and I asked them to do one
about the books. Is it?
Yeah. Although Kyle does focus quite a bit on the TV show, but they're doing themed podcasts like religion and things like that. And I asked them to do one on, after our discussion last week about the Order of the Alchemists, if they could do a series on like orders, and so the Night's Watch, the King's Guard, the Order of the Green Men, the Meister, you know, organized orders that have vows and secrets and traditions, and just
you
a kind
at
of
history of Westeros. Do they have anything on that yet?
They
do really specific kind of
like in depth.
Yeah.
I mean, there's loads of conspiracies about the Meisters.
It is interesting because he doesn't open the gates for the realm when the sack of King's Landing. He opens it to let in the Lannisters. And that's a big difference, Pycelle, and everything is for the Lannisters, which makes him more dangerous, I think, for Tyrion. Because
the two key characters at the moment that have this position of for the realm is Varys and in this chapter Pycelle.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just about staking your claim to one person who you feel will be the most beneficial to the realm, and in Pycelle's case he believes it's Tywin, which isn't, you know, if you're forced to kind of think what would be best, what would be the most stable for the realm, possibly Tywin. Well,
it's kind of, it's whatever you think is going to work. If you think it's honor, you're going to back the Stark. If you think it's power and fear and aggression, you're going to back a Baratheon, like with the power of the fist, the fury. If you think it's money, you're going to back the Lannisters.
But if you want peace in the realm,
who do you back? I guess you back, on another day you might back the Tyrells, you know?
Yeah, you might back Renly. Yeah.
That's that Tyrion chapter. Do you have anything else from that chapter?
No, I mean just that very short scene with Tyrion. Weird dynamics between these two, and Tyrion saying that he likes her when she's in a certain mood, and when there's definitely this love-hate relationship, and I think potentially some sort of sexual thing there as well from Tyrion's point of view. It's weird, the way that she's genuinely like just swinging him around in glee, and it's at that point that he decides to poison her. But there's a mindset that like Tyrion is now in King's Landing, he's playing the hand, and he's managed to actually sit his backside down on the Iron Throne, and he likes the feeling of it. He likes this feeling of looking down on people, and this kind of links into the next chapter as well, where he's kind of the happiest that I think he's ever been in his life.
Never will be.
Yeah. And but the bit as well with Sir Alistair, where that could have gone several different ways actually. Although we're saying, the worst person to send, and there's in Tyrion's mindset here, he's talking about this, and yet, this vague shiver that he has when he thinks about the North and what Mormont tells him, and the fact that they need more men up there, and he does encourage, take men out of the cells and take them to the wall, whatever. But the biggest thing here about him just dismissing Alistair is that the court is basically laughing at Alistair for saying the hand, this hand rotted to pieces while I was waiting to actually appear. And Tyrion doesn't recognise that. He doesn't recognise that they're laughing at Sir Alistair. He just hears the laughter and immediately feels that people are laughing at him. So he makes bad decisions when he feels people are laughing at him for being a dwarf. And that's really, that's a weakness of Tyrion's really at the moment. As unfortunate as that is, and as horrible as that might feel to him, it's actually a weakness in his character that he's insecure about people laughing at him.
So do you think it would have gone differently if they met in private?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. It is one of those things as well when you see Alistair having to try and beg him. It's just it was a hard piece to read. It kind of ties in with what Sonny asked. It was the second question, which I know they were already discussing in the chat, how long Tyrion has been there. I'm sure there are timelines out there. I'm sure I should have looked it up actually for you, but I don't think it is that long. And yet I think Alistair suggested he was waiting a long time, but it's still relatively warm in King's Landing, so the hand would have rotted anyway. But
yeah,
I think it would have rotted because it's so far from the magic of the wall. It's more to do with that, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And also, I'm not really sure what the point was with the hand. Like, was it still moving around when they were bringing it up, when they started leaving? I'd like to know a bit more about that. But Ian says, both Tyrion and Tywin loved escorts, and so did Pycelle. Lannister confirmed. So, I'm on to it. Yeah, that's good. So, so that's it for Tyrion. We move on to Arya. So the Arya chapter this week was my second favorite chapter. I love this chapter. This is the most amount of foreshadowing we've seen for the Faceless Men. There's a lot here. So we have this is the first time she takes on a real disguise, like a disguise of a person she knows already. She took on fictional disguises before. This is the first time we can see her kind of observing and gathering information, like she'll have to do later on as Cat. This is the origins of the list and the mantra, and this is the origins of her kind of it's developing a philosophy where you have to kill for a purpose. There has to be a reason why somebody dies. So these are the big things for me that like there are huge faceless men things in this chapter. I don't know how you felt it. I'm sure you love this chapter as well.
There's one of the guards as well, where the line is that he's saying to everybody that's arriving at Harrenhal, you know, in order for you to survive, you just need to obey, serve, and live. And that, I suppose, is a little bit like faceless men. It's I actually haven't got a lot of this. This is so Arya's arrival at Harrenhal. This is where the Mountain's men are terrorizing the villagers, so we get exposed to horrible people like Raff the Sweetling and the Tickler. And they're asking that question over and over and over again about where the gold is, the silver, the gems, the food. Where's Beric Dondarrion? How many men are with him? Where did he go? So that's, you know, and horrible, horrible, horrible what's happening here, and they're just being tortured. The interesting thing that I've got from this is the several references to the dead being left out for the wolves.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Is that a metaphor? Or is there a reason for that?
I don't know if I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's a particular reason. I mean, you're making the wolves more bloodthirsty, I'm guessing, and maybe that's just the Mountain's way. But it's so the tortured villagers are being left out for the wolves. Anyone who's in Arya's group as well, that's kind of, you know, on the road heading to Harrenhal, are told that, you know, they'll be left. Basically, anyone who's died or left for dead or murdered or killed by the Mountain's men are left for the wolves. And it just again makes me think about the proximity of where they are. They're still in the vicinity of the Riverlands, and you know, well, Harrenhal, and which again is very close to the God's Eye. You've got a pack of wolves that's head by this direwolf, she-wolf, and you've also got these bodies being left out. Dead bodies left out for the wolves. And so my question is that in this context, being so close to the God's Eye and the old gods and the old religion again, is this some sort of like blood sacrifice to the dire wolves? Is this the same sense of in the concept of the old gods? Are the dire wolves some sort of like sigil for the old gods, and by leaving, you know, leaving these dead bodies for the dire wolves, is it the same as kind of a blood sacrifice to the weirwoods? So yeah, it's just that it's mentioned several times, and also Arya talks about old Nan's tales about Harrenhal physically being made, you know, like the foundations of the castle being made with blood. So there's a heck of a lot of that. But again, I'm just thinking about it, Harrenhal, and the proximity to the God's Eye and the old, you know, like the old gods and the old magic. And not only that, there's a massive giant she-wolf, dire wolf out there as well, and they're talking about leaving things for the wolves.
See, when I read it, I wasn't sure, and I thought maybe it was to do with how sadistic the Mountain is, because he's basically giving the wolves the taste of humans, so that if they miss anyone or anyone tries to escape, the wolves will get them. They'll want them because they'll acquire that taste.
It could be a very practical thing as well.
No. Let's go tinfoil. Let's go tinfoil.
In a very macabre way. It could be though. Yeah. But it could, I mean, I'm not saying that that Gregor is making a blood sacrifice to the old gods by leaving corpses out for the wolves, knowing that there's a dire wolf out there, but just by virtue of that happening, it's somehow feeding into this this magical religion of the old gods, and again, being so close to the God's Eye.
I did like how the torture that they're committing is serving up inconsistent information, and that like an 8-9-year-old girl can even see that that's completely, it doesn't work. Torture doesn't work. And it does, like, if you think about the people that will be tortured, particularly when we get to Ramsay. Just that it kind of suggests that it's not going to go well for him because the information is going to be inconsistent. She hates the villagers for being sheep.
Yeah.
Interesting choice of words. And she also hates the biggest thing that she hates about the Clegane men is that they took her secret disguise, that she couldn't be a girl. And it made me think that people that like Hotbot Pie, they obviously he's like aghast at who she is, but they care, like he cares who she is because he knows her and he loves her and he cares about her and he cares about who she is as a person. He wants to see her full identity and he's shocked by that. But people
that he doesn't know she's Arya.
No, I mean,
as a woman,
as a girl. I don't know. I mean, like he assumed that she was like his mate, like as a boy, like he assumes. My point is that she's learned a valuable lesson that you go unnoticed when people don't care who you are and your identity doesn't really mean anything for those kind of people, whereas it only means something for the people that actually care about you. And that's when, like, that's what I mean. Like Hot Pie is like, oh my God, you're a girl. That kind of changes the way I think about you, but still cares about her. But I wonder what the implication of that will be when she meets somebody that knows her later on as a faceless man, when she comes back to Westeros and starts running into people who knew Arya. And how will that dynamic work? Because it from this chapter, it seems like it's very difficult for her to give up disguise. And she doesn't want to do it. It's a secret that she gets to keep. It's like something she gets to control. And I mean, we've said this many times, like this girl is psychologically for the wolves. Like she's just like gone. Like, so it's just a kind of a red flag, I guess, that it's not going to be easy for her to give that up, even when she maybe meets Sansa or Jon or whatever. She's not going to, even if she has Needle or whatever, it's not going to be that easy for her to transition.
She's very I mean, I like the fact that she's got good detective skills, so she's figured out that the Lannisters have been there for a while and what that means in terms of the battle and what's happening and what's going on. But you're right, I think she's kind of, I don't know how you'd describe, she's a traumatized child, isn't she, at the moment, whether you'd call her as some sort of survivor of trauma or whatever. But she, we don't need to recount all the things that she's seen and witnessed up until this point. But I suppose when you're in a situation like that and at that age, I'm just trying to put it into kind of real life, practical situation. You do want to grasp onto anything that will make you feel as though you've got some form of control back again over your life. Like people who self-harm talk about things like this, about having an element of something that they can control themselves. And the fact that you're right, this is the chapter very important for Arya's character, where her hate for these people manifests itself into a physical thing, which is her list, her mantra, her prayer, if you like, before she goes to sleep every night. And that's the thing that makes her feel as though she's got a purpose. There's something that she's kind of existing and fighting. It's a real, she's polished her hate and she's crafted it into the list.
Ion says, and the two people who ground her are also transformed. Jon is kind of dead and Bran is a tree. Like their identity is being completely deconstructed as well. And I think this is the one thing that maybe the show has spoiled for us, that it's going to be Sansa, and it can only be Sansa. If she is any hope, it'll only be Sansa. That'll be that kind of, because Rickon is going to be gone. Like that kid, he was what, 2, 3, so it'll only be Sansa, because Sansa has polished her hate too, and
Yeah.
Sansa has taken guys too. So yeah, it'll if they have any hope of, and I think there'd be something nice in it having to be Arya and Sansa potentially bringing Winterfell into the next age, kind of.
Mhm.
If Arya survives, I'm not sure, but she will. But if she survives, it can only be Sansa, I guess. The other thing I already mentioned earlier, the people loved King Aerys, not Robert. They didn't want Robert back. They want Aerys back, which
Yeah.
I thought was interesting. Seeing as we're going into Dany next,
Yeah. Yeah.
that connection between the two chapters is quite interesting. That
Yeah, it was a surprise actually, really, when people were talking about Aries. Yeah.
yeah, it's like as if the more human their kings are, the less they want to be able to empathize with them, I guess. Like Aries has that kind of magical Targ blood. There's a certain amount of um like he's really up there. Whereas Robert was just like an ordinary guy that, he was not an ordinary guy, but he was just an ordinary lord. He had a little bit of Targ blood in him or whatever. But and the Lannisters, who the hell are the Lannisters?
Yeah.
Like they don't have anything in them. So it's the people. It tells you an important thing, that no matter how bad broken the people get, they know where real power lies.
Yes.
And that kind of plays back into what we had last week, that power resides where people think it resides. Ian says, only you can save me, Sansa 1 Kenobi. Yes. And Tywin ruled well for the Mad King. Sure. But it's the king still at the end of the day that had the power. So that's for them anyway. I think that old guy is just rambling. I think though it was the two women, wasn't it, that were talking? I don't think it was just the old guy. It was like there was a couple of them talking. But yeah, no, you could be right. But I still feel though that people don't know what's going on behind closed doors for most of the time, and there'd be rumors about how powerful Tywin is. But at the end of the day, um, they had Rhaegar and Aerys, like especially Rhaegar. I wonder, do the people feel like they were robbed of Rhaegar?
Yeah.
That's the big thing, I'd say, for a lot of people. Because he would have they would have seen him more probably than they saw Aerys even.
Mm.
But yeah, so that's the Arya chapter, and she is moving into very interesting times, and we'll have 2 Arya chapters next week to look forward to. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really an Arya and Tyrion book, isn't it?
This one definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
So then we move into Dany 2. Dany is, yeah, not much happening. But she's moving. She's in Karth,
Mm-hmm.
and she is being kind of accosted from all sides. Come to the house of the undying. Come here. Come there.
Yeah.
And in the middle, then has this really weird uh, masked woman that's freaking her out, and then has Jorah kind of pulling her away. So yeah, she finally gets news then that Robert is dead as well. So there's a lot a lot of information coming into her very quickly.
Mm.
But the big thing here for me is how much she has changed, I think, from Game of Thrones. That like how her inner, like her self-confidence is definitely coming through in this chapter in particular. And how quickly her head is turned when people say, "Oh yes, you're the queen," and blah blah. And Quaid is kind of saying, it's just the dragons. Like it's not you. It's the dragons. Everybody wants the dragons. So I feel like she's losing, and of course this is important in this book, the way she's losing control of the situation and maybe letting her head run away with her a bit. I loved the idea of her saying, like, because it's beautiful where she's put up in Zaro. Is it Zaro? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Zaro?
Saros.
Zohan Dassos or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. He Zaran Zor. I don't know. Whatever. He puts her up in this amazing palace, which is the size of a market town or whatever. Um, and when she's in this beautiful oasis and bathing and all that, she wonders if it's going to be like this in King's Landing, and it must be, because Viserys said it's the most beautiful place in the world. I'm like, think, Heart, think. Do not go back to the Red Keep. Cersei is, squatting over a hole in a freezing cold wall, no doubt. It's a run right now. So it's just like, it couldn't be, like, it sounds amazing. Just stay there. It sounds lovely.
Yeah, it does actually.
Yeah. And I mean, I know obviously we don't want her to stay there, but I just wonder, they didn't give that kind of impression of her when she arrives in Westeros in the show. Like in the books, I just wonder what is it going to be really like for her to arrive in Westeros?
It's probably going to be really gritty and full of cold and danger and life-threatening kind of. And she could be on her own. It could just be her and Drogon that arrive.
She definitely won't be wearing a dress with one boob hanging out anyway, that's for sure.
No.
Very quickly get frostbite of the nipple when she arrives in Westeros. No doubt it's going to be covered in snow when she arrives. But
where do you think she's going to actually arrive? Obviously, in the TV show, she very, conveniently lands at Dragonstone.
I thought it was going to be Dorne. I still think Dorne.
Right. Okay.
I like the idea of it being Dragonstone or Storm's End.
You don't think it's going to be at the Wall, or?
Oh, like when she first arrives in Westeros?
Yeah.
At the Wall? I don't know. I wouldn't have thought so. Maybe if she's flying.
But it's funny because Stuart was saying today, whereabouts is Bravos and Pentos and whatnot? He was like, well, like in relation to the north, and it's like, well, it's kind of
the fingers, is it?
Yeah, like over the narrow sea. And he was saying, why doesn't it snow then in Bravos if it's like that close proximity north? It's still kind of. And he was like, well, it's because it's a different continent, and it's like
maybe.
Yeah. It's what?
Still on the same approximate longitude.
He's saying it's still on approximate the same
Bravos
longitude.
Isn't that hot though, isn't it? It's very wet there, is it?
Yeah, like Paris, continental Europe.
Yeah. It's probably the axis as well. Like there's probably a weird axis. But like we see it straight on, but it actually might be tilted. Do you know what I mean? Like Ireland is a lot more north than people think it is. Danny calls Ned a traitor. She doesn't know how Ned's father was killed. I think if she thinks Westeros is the most beautiful place in the world, I think there's a lot of gaps in her knowledge for sure. But you imagine the story of Ned would have got to her somehow. Maybe not.
Well,
story Ned's father and how Ned and Brandon died. It does later on, I feel. No, does Barristan not tell her later?
Possibly, she gets more information from Barristan later on.
Yeah, and Ian says, what if she gets shipwrecked in Skagos and runs into Rickon and they both ride unicorns and need the army of the Skagossi to retake in Winterfell? I think you need the book badly.
Yeah.
I think you've been waiting way too long for wins. It's starting to fry your brain. But I'm with you on the unicorns.
I think that's going to be the one that's like
we're all going to come up with mad theories now.
That's the sneak book that's going to come right at the end after Dream of Spring.
And do you know what? I'd love it to be in a pop-up form. So like, or one of those things where like you pull out the little pages and a little sound effect thing at the side. Rickon and Danny.
Do you think that there's any significance to this very bold statement about Carth being the greatest city that ever was? God. And I mean, it's is it the center of the universe? I mean, it's a very ancient city, and there's lots of like symbolism there around the walls and things like that, like animals, and then like, you know, people pleasuring each other and all that kind of, you know, it seems very it's a very cultured kind of place.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I just wondered. I just wondered, like, because the kids are all naked and covered in paint, and then the women walk around with one boob hanging out.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't they just all naked if that's the case?
Yeah. Well, it's a very rich, very colourful kind of culture, but it's just the fact that there's this great big, you know, they talk about where the East meets the West, and and it's like, what is there any?
I feel like it sounds to me like it's the last days of Rome.
Yeah, it does a little bit, doesn't it? Yeah.
There's a lot of style and very little substance.
Mm.
That's what it feels like. The idea that what was it that the king that saw Carth and plucked out his own eyes because he'd never see anything as beautiful ever again.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, and yet they're all dying for the dragons, so it can't be that great.
It's interesting what you said a moment ago about, because it's the complete opposite of what I've written in my notes about Dany. You were saying about Dany having a head turned and pulled in different directions, and I've actually got here. I've actually got Dany isn't having her head turned.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So what my impression was, even though they're offering her what she wants, you know, you can have anything. You're a young girl. You can look at all this colourful, you know, all of this kind of very distracting stuff, considering I mean, it'd be so easy for her to just go, oh yeah, I'm just going to put my feet right under the table here. They all want a piece of me, and I can just be a spoiled brat and have what I want from here. Especially considering the harsh environment that she's just come through, crossing the Red Waste. But she doesn't. She immediately thinks, okay, you want to give me something? Give me ships. I need ships to get back.
Yeah, but I thought, like, for me, it was just like, well, you just automatically think they're going to just give you ships. Like,
yeah, but she also.
Do you feel?
But I think she's also thinking she's being quite responsible and kind of grown up in a way, because she's saying things like, okay, I can see that this is all a bit of a show that's being put on for me here. I'm you know, it's very nice, yes, lovely, but I'm not being taken in by it. What I really want is Jorah, who I feel safe with, and one of my blood riders to go and really find out what the score is, what's going on, you know, how many ships are there at the docks. And she asked one of her blood riders to just go and, you know, we're being shown what they want to show us, so go and find out what the real deal is. And I just thought that's actually quite,
and it is quite clever, because she says also talk to the women as well, and like don't just talk to the men. But I just felt like she doesn't really ask what's in it for them. Do you know, like, to
so it's her. Kind of like, I'm here, I am the last dragon.
Oh, yes, of course. It's very Viserys, like, oh yeah, obviously it's because I'm a queen. Like, you're in Carth and they say it's the best place in the world. Why do they care about Westeros?
Yeah.
So that's, for me, that's what I meant. But I can totally see your point that she hasn't. It's very good leadership qualities on show as well, for sure.
Yeah. And she's, you know, I mean, she could have, things could have been very different given the situation that she's in, but she even she even kind of reassures Jorah as well, because at the very end, when the captain of the Cinnamon Wind comes and tells her about Robert's death, and it kind of goes through how she feels in that situation. And Jorah at one point says, Khaleesi, don't give all your plans and all your secrets away to just random people, because she was saying, oh, when I get on the throne, I'll make sure that you rewarded for this to the captain of the Cinnamon Wind, the Summer Islander. I think he's a Summer Islander. And I've got she reassures Jorah and herself as well at the same time of who she is. So she feels that she has to say, look, don't worry about, you know, I'm not a little girl anymore. I'm kind of understanding what the responsibility is here. I'm not stupid. You know, I want you to understand that I'm not stupid enough just to listen to what people are telling me at face value. I want to know what the real deal is underneath all of it. And it's like, yeah, I kind of, I am liking Dany a lot more in this reread than I have previously.
But this is only the second chapter. By the way, I don't mean to alarm you, but there is a very nasty looking Lannister at your back.
Oh, she has got sharp claw. That's Asha, by the way.
Oh, is it? Oh God, it's an Iron Island. Oh, she's
Cat on a turntable.
Oh,
do you remember
God.
that reminds me of the Father Ted episode. Do you remember?
Yeah.
When they're at the fair. Cat on a turntable.
Oh, is that what she's waiting for you to swing around like that?
Yeah.
Oh, they're brilliant. The guy that comes, by the way, that Jorah brings up is the same guy that'll be on the ship with Aemon and Sam later on.
Oh, right. Okay, didn't realize that.
Yeah, he's the same one. So he's already met a Targaryen, and then he refuses to keep Aemon on the ship to be buried. Remember, they want to keep him on, and he refuses.
Yeah.
So, but it is the same guy. Later on, so I just wonder what's his name, Kuhuru? Is that how you say it? Kuhuru? Anyway, just the significance of that. I was wondering, probably nothing, but
she wants the people. She wants, yes. I didn't realize that. I know that there is another Summer Islander who pulls Sam out of the water in Feast of Crows much later on down the line, but that's Zondo, I think he's called. We've got lots of X's in the name. This chapter here, Dany's talking about how she wants the people to love her, but she knows that she needs to conquer. So there is this bigger thing there, isn't there, of I mean, she's looking for, grasping for something, and some, like, almost this divine sign that she's looking for, and in her mind she thinks it's the comet, you know, with the dragon's tail in the sky, and that's what she has to follow, and it's some kind of like omen for her. But so she's still formulating, you know, does she want, what kind of leader she wants to be when she actually gets in that, you know, when she gets to where she wants to be, she's already thinking about what kind of ruler she wants to be. Does she want to be loved, or, you know, does she need to put that aside because she needs to conquer?
Jorah has the makings of a decent hand here, actually. He seriously, instantly doubts that Ned was a traitor.
Yes.
He knows, he's a good reader of people, Jorah. Like you know, he's got. Barristan is like that as well, I feel, a little, maybe, but they're both blinded by loyalty at times, but in general they're both good at reading people. Dany, it's up and down with how she's able to read people, and should she trust Quaithi, however you pronounce it? Do you think she's right not to trust her? I think her instinct is like on not trusting someone whose face you can't see is a good one.
Yeah. But also at the same time, Quaithi's the only one that's not pandering to her and saying, look, that, you know, basically, everyone else is saying, here's what I can do and what I can give you and what I can do for you. What I'm giving you is a warning. So she talks about the dragons, the dragon lust, basically. You know, this is why people are offering you everything and they're interested in you. It's because they've got dragon lust. They're after you 3 dragons.
But she probably is as well, right?
Yeah,
to be near the dragons would whatever kind of power she has might be amplified by in the presence of dragons.
Yeah. She's a shadow binder from a shine.
Yeah. So who do you think? I know we mentioned this last week, but I'm interested in hearing who you think she is, or is she somebody from the series, and will we ever see her again? I think we'll see her again.
Yes, I think we'll see her again. I think that at the moment, I think that Quaithe is Quaithe in Carth. And I think when she appears to Dany at different points in her story, that this is Dany's. It's almost like Arya's feelings and emotions lead her to creating a list which manifests itself into something. I think that Quaithe's visitations of Dany later on in the story are almost like Dany conjuring up this manifestation. I don't really think Quaithe is anybody specifically. I think she's this character now here in the story in Carth. She's a shadow binder, and she's burrowed somehow, not because of power or anything like that, but she's just got to Dany somehow. She's got to her because of the just watch your back, because of the dragons. So she's somebody who's got into Dany's head, and because of that, Dany kind of basically brings it up. She's basically kind of like, I don't know, manifesting this image to help to guide her, because she hasn't got anybody that can do that for her. She's looking for signs constantly. Mm-hmm. So she's created this image of this person who comes to visit her and gives her advice or warnings or whatever. I think it's all Dany's imagination.
So what you're telling me is that my theory that she is Craster's mother.
Oh. Craster's mother. Wow.
That's not a spoiler. I'm just messing. Weird. We're still on the air, right? I've done something really weird with the screen here. I don't know what I did. But anyway.
Oh, hi, Lisa.
Yeah.
Lisa's here. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. That's it for me for this chapter.
Yeah, me too.
They're slow enough, aren't they? The Dany chapters, like there's not. Maybe at the time when I first read them, it felt like a lot was happening, but there's not much happening really.
There is something in here about Jorah saying he refers to a peach. It's not going to be as easy as just taking a fresh peach. And it just reminded me again of like this metaphor of the peach and Renly and Stannis, which we know is going to be coming up soon. So it's almost like the peach represents something that you can just, it's easy. Just take it. Just take it. It's like taking a fresh peach. Just take this, and that's exactly what Renly did. Just do it, Stannis. Just join me. Take this peach. Join me. Everything will be. And Stannis was like, no, and it haunts him. This peach haunts him.
I'm getting coffee delivered to me.
Oh, lovely.
Dear. From the hand. Thank you very much. Ion says Craster's mother confirmed. Yes, you heard it here first. I think we should have a stream where we should just do the most outlandish tinfoil, like even beyond tinfoil theory, and just at the end see if any of them come out. Craster's mother is Quaithe. There you go. Okay, so we're on to Bran 4.
Yes.
I can't believe we've only had 4 Bran chapters. It looks like we've had loads of Bran, but they've been long chapters.
They're quite sweeping, aren't they? And we've had all the feasts and everything, and all the different northern men up at Winterfell.
Yeah, so this is all about the green site, this chapter mainly.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things. So Jojen dreams of a winged wolf. and he says it's Bran. I wondered, could it be Jon as well? And he says that we find out that ravens can't find, well, ravens and men can't find Greywater Watch, which I know your theory on Greywater Watch we talked about before, but you might want to run through it again if you want for the next book. We find out that Ramsay, there's just a lot of like information drops in this chapter.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Old Nan is calling, did I say that? Old Nan is calling Jojen little grandfather, which I found really interesting.
I thought you meant she was like on the phone. Old Nan's calling. Just give me a minute.
No. We sent her off to Manchester. So we have Ramsay took Hornwood, we found, but that the Manderleys took her land before he could get to it.
Yeah.
The three-eyed crow is revealed. And Jojen talks about falling, and Summer gets really, really angry. So there's lots of kind of bits and pieces, and we find out that Lewin specialized in studying magic, and that not many maesters do that.
Yeah. What? Okay. So just going back on what you said, the crow actually came to visit Jojen as well. After some sort of childhood illness. So you get visited by the crow, and he gives you your third eye, and you can, decide whether to use it, open it, whatever. But this is how it happened with Jojen. This is how he got his green sight. He was given his third eye by the crow that came to visit him after a childhood illness. So it's almost like you can only when you're suspended between life and death will this thing happen to you, where this window is opened where this crow can come and visit you.
I think that's true of all religions. Sorry, I'm after putting something in my mouth. This is really rude. But is that maybe where the drowned gods got to take advantage of Shireen, perhaps, through Patchface? That idea of being suspended between life and death, I wonder.
Yeah. And it's the way they drown, and the resurrection thing.
Something more there, yeah.
Yeah.
And Varys, of course, as well, perhaps.
Yeah. The just making a point that Mira's 16. I don't know how old Jojen is, but he's a younger brother, I think.
What if Jojen isn't Howland's son? What if he's like an ancestor of Howland? The way old Nan calls him little grandfather. So that he looks like the description of him in the last chapter, he almost sounded like a child of the forest or something. He looked so unusual coming into the hall, and I just wondered why old Nan, is it just because of the knowledge he has in true green sight, or AU says all crows are liars, except Jon Snow. Jon Snow can't lie.
But there's also let me have a look. What's the lizard lion? When he says, "Did you dream of a lizard lion? Did you dream of a wolf?" He's fascinated by wanting to find out what Bran's dreams are, and obviously Bran starts to get quite wound up about this, and then that gets translated across to Summer, and the wolves go a bit crazy, and they end up jumping up into the weirwood tree, and then Hodor comes and saves the day and shoos the wolves away. But he's asking him, he's being quite persistent, and even though quite clearly Bran's uncomfortable and doesn't want to talk about it, Jojen's still persisting and asking him about the dreams. Did you dream of the wolf? Did you dream of the lizard lion? And then
maybe he
it
just
starts
likes alliteration.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But he gets really he's quite pushy, and
I don't know what the lizard lion is.
But it does also the other thing that happened in this chapter is Bran remembers who the Golden Man is, and that it's Jaime, the Queen's brother. And
nothing really comes of that, right?
No, apart from him feeling that he needs to, he's not told anybody about it. It's just that he now remembers who it is. The main thing for me in this chapter is, as you touched on there, about Lewin and the green side. So it's just, again, this is a Order of the Green Hand video that I watched not so long ago, and it's like they're doing this Old Powers Waking series. And one of the things that they talked about was Lewin when he dies, and how far he drags himself right across the Godswood and everything to basically die in front of a weirwood. Like that's his last, like he must, you know, he's desperately like grasping and kind of crawling. And it's like, why wouldn't you just, if you're going to die, just die where you are? But he'd like made this desperate last attempt to die in front of a weirwood. Which makes me, you know, just what did you believe in, Lewin? What did you believe? Just forget, let's put aside for a second who the Meisters are and what the Meisters believe in, and what their interpretation of higher mysteries is, which is effectively magic. But what does that core syllable look like? You know, what if you're going to be studying the higher mysteries at the Citadel? To what extent do you study the higher mysteries? You know, what is it that gives you that Valyrian link at the end of it? I mean, Lewin talks about, oh, you know, we're all tempted. If you study in the higher mysteries, we're all tempted to kind of tinker around with spells and powers and everything. But it's just basically hocus pocus. It's not. It's, you know, it doesn't really mean anything. Even gods die, we think. So again, that's like what is it that this order of Meisters is trying to do when it comes to, or where are they coming from when it comes to magic? Talks about everything changing, but was he, when he died, did he crawl across such a distance to die in front of the weirwood tree just for dramatic effect, just for it to be, you know, there was a reason that he did that, and it was because potentially he knew that he wanted his consciousness to go into the kind of, you know, the weirwood net. So I just want to know exactly, you know, what is involved in studying the higher mysteries to achieve this Valyrian steel link, and what do we think Lewin really believed in? Because it could be that he was desperate to get that job in Winterfell, because that is the, you know, if he's really kind of interested in magic and wanting to find out about the old gods, and you know, that would be the perfect place for him to be.
AU saying that so he said all crows are liars. I think old Nan referring to crows that visit your dreams, and points out that Lewin was asked to be bled out there at the weirwood. And Sonny Frank says, I thought Lewin was just lying because they were children, but when he was dying, he had to get to a weirwood.
Basically fed himself to the heart tree.
He's saying, I feel like if a maester is going to study something, like in our own world, it's better to study near the source of the most amount of information on that thing. So that to me would be the north in Westeros. It's the closest they have to magic. Like the most amount of magic seems to be centered around the north. And I wonder, do certain maesters get to choose their posting? Because it would be the best place for someone like Lewin to be. Yeah, at the north.
But I wonder what he wanted, though. I wonder what he was after. He'd put himself in this position. He had gained the trust of the Stark family. He'd, you know, birthed all of the current Stark children. He knows a lot. He knows a lot about what, you know, the kind of family relationships and the Tullys and what they, you know, but he protests probably far too much to Bran that magic doesn't exist, and it doesn't, you know. In this chapter, Bran essentially is questioning the existence of magic. You've got these magical siblings that are telling him that there's this thing called green sight, and that magic does exist. And then on the other hand, he's got somebody that he's known all his life that actually brought him into the world that's saying, no, that's a load of rubbish, but convincingly. You know, he talks about, well, of course, you know, you get into wanting to be, you know, as a young Meister, you want to find out if these things really work, and we all try it, and we all try and do this, but of course, you know, to no avail. And it's like, well, you know, he convinces Bran, but also Bran still thinks at the very, very end of this chapter that that's a shame if that's the case. If what Maester Luwin is saying is real and that magic doesn't exist, isn't that a shame? Because if it was real, ghosts can walk, trees can talk, and broken boys can grow up to be knights.
I think the Citadel and the Maesters are kind of like the US government and the CIA. It's like deny. We're not investigating, and I'm not saying there are aliens or anything like that, but we're not investigating aliens. We're not investigating the supernatural. But there have been programs where they've worked on telepathy. They have looked into extraterrestrial stories, but for the public, it's like deny. It's like any interference might harm their work. I mean, we know that the Maesters have some access to magic of some sort, but with the candles and everything later on. But I wonder, are they didn't replace the alchemists by accident. The alchemists have a secret weapon there, have some ability to magic. Maybe they've lost or forgotten, or they still have access to it there. But the Maesters wouldn't have been able to replace them unless they had something to offer, or something to replace or work against that kind of pyromancy. There has to be something else there. PSAD says, absolutely think the Maesters want to rid the world of magic, and Luwin is trying to convince Bran magic isn't real, but knows it is, I guess. I finished that. PSAD didn't say, but knows it is, but I'm guessing he does. Sonny says, that's an excellent example. Thanks. And the Littlefinger actor is going to be the lead of an AMC Project Blue Book TV show. Interesting. That's he's the Irish guy, Aidan Gillen. Aidan Gillen, isn't that name? Anyway, it's I feel like that they know magic is out there, but they're trying to control it always, because you know, it's like, and again, to go back to the CIA example, it's now been proved that the CIA have infiltrated certain rebel groups in certain parts of the world to work within those places to get them to kind of control the outcome of a situation. So it would make sense if the Maesters were able to, they understood enough about magic to try and use it against itself, if you know what I mean.
The massive things, the fact that they can control all communication really that comes in and out, key like headline stories, they control all of that.
Well, the big thing is with the control the ravens, exactly. And also that leaves Maester, the biggest thing here, it may not be the magic at all that he's denying. It may be Mira Jojen, because that's a massive gap in their knowledge, what the hell they're doing in Greywater Watch. That means the Maesters can't get into Greywater Watch if they don't have ravens there. But you think a Maester goes to Greywater Watch with Jane Westerling? Is that what your theory is in the next book?
Well, yeah, I think that there's going to be either that, or Jane Westerling somehow turns up at the Citadel, and that's where the setting is for a Meister, but just going by the pattern that's happened in the books before, Meister / Citadel, and then the next one will be Wildlings / North of the Wall. So it's either a Wildling or a Meister, or it's the location that they're attached to, whether it's a Maester's castle or a citadel. But we do know for sure that Jane Westerling is going to be in the prologue. And it will also have a Maester in it, or something to do with the citadel.
Like, I wonder how married he is to that pattern at this stage.
Yeah.
Because he's already, like, I don't know, maybe he is, I don't know. Yeah, I'd love to see Greywater Watch.
Yeah.
Love it. And I still think we're going to have an epilogue or prologue from Rickon's point of view at some stage as well.
Oh, I hope so. I do hope so.
I think so. I think.
I mean,
I obviously, if we do, that probably means he's going to die. But I'd like to have a point of view from Rickon at some stage.
It could mean a number of things. It could mean that Jane Westerling dies in the prologue.
It could be just from her point of view.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it could be from her point of view. It could be a Maester that kills her. Who knows? It could be, or it might have nothing to do with the Maester or the Citadel. But going by the pattern, then.
Do you think she'll be pregnant or have had a child at that stage?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, possibly.
I have a question. Will Bran's sight be limited to the weirwood net alone? And that seems to be the way they're playing it at the moment. And my question is, if that's true, then the weirwoods are only in Westeros, right? They're not. There's no weirwoods in the east.
I don't think so.
So yeah, no, it's something it was just going around in my head.
There's weirwood, but not weirwoods.
So yeah, even dead weirwood though. I mean, there's a weirwood throne in the Eyrie, and I think it's Preston Jacobs has a great video on how he thinks that the remnants of like whatever is going on in the weirwood net are in that throne, kind of potentially driving Lysa and Robert Arryn crazy. Like, because Robert Arryn talks about hearing whispers all the time. I kind of think that might be green sight of some sort.
Yeah.
And that's either coming through the Tully line or the Littlefinger line. So yeah.
I mean, just to pause for a second to talk about weirwoods, and we don't really see them in Essos. Is again just going back to Order. You can tell I've been listening to a lot of Order of the Green Hand podcasts. Their theory is that the House of Black and White, deep down into like underneath the House of Black and White, in the sort of where Arya in the last chapter goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper down in the House of Black and White, is that their theory is that there's a massive grove of weirwoods underneath the House of Black and White, right, and that the whole religion is based on coming to the House of Black and White to commit suicide, and then you've kind of prepared and you disappear downstairs somewhere, almost like Sweeney Todd's barbershop. But you've got a constant supply of human like blood sacrifice for the weirwoods. I can't remember the rest of what the theory was and what the purpose of that is necessarily, but it just made me think like these subterranean groves of weirwoods, because they can potentially live forever, and I think they can grow in quite strange environments and conditions. They haven't been able to take root in the Eyrie, but
that's probably height, because there's no ground.
Yeah.
But just the idea there that just going back to Sonny Frank's original question in the John chapter about the sheep, and the idea of the sheep like being taken by the others. And I know that that's something that we learn later, is that sheep were kind of fed into the trees, as a form of blood sacrifice. That was the stories. And then we have in Arya's chapter people who are easily led, or who blindly follow, are called sheep as well. and it just made me wonder that typically at this time it's men that are soldiers that are recruited to blindly follow, and is that why the others are only taking men? And also, have we had any women with green sight apart from like the Targaryen who has the dream about the doom?
Danny the Dreamer.
Yeah, that's the only woman though, right? Like I know we have on the east, we have like Quaithe potentially, what's her called? What's some? Anyway, I can't remember her name.
Shireen has kind of
Shireen, yeah. But that seems to be coming like maybe from the Drown God and the Red God. I wonder, like, if you're in the north, is it mainly a male thing that's passed on? Maybe old Nan, I don't know. But it's just something that, you know, I don't know. I'm just spitballing. Yeah. I have actually no theory here. I'm just trying to just throw out some ideas. Yeah, was there anything else in this chapter?
Nope.
That was it. Yeah, so we're on to Tyrion 7. I felt like I have nothing here. This is just Lancel and Tyrion. And basically Tyrion Lancel shows up to demand Pycelle's release, and there's a lot to do with the main thing in this chapter that I was going to say struck me, and then that's the wrong word to use because I'm going to talk about seed. The main thing that not struck me, stood out to me. Oh, again, that doesn't. There's a theme to do with seeds in Tyrion 7, and we have obviously Lancel. The idea that like Tyrion says, you know, don't put a baby in my sister, basically.
Yeah.
And then it ends with him kind of coming inside of Shay and realizing he's in love with her.
Yeah.
The only thing I had here was Dancy, the bet that Allah. Sorry, do you want to?
Right. No. I was going to ask you, because I was listening to it, and I've only just switched over to the Raidatrice audio version.
Yeah.
Some of the names he says, I'm kind of like, and I didn't know whether I didn't know whether he was calling her Dancy or Tansy.
Dancy. D,
right,
with a D,
D, yeah. Right, okay, so it's not a Tansy, because I was like, oh, Tansy, and she's got red hair, and could she be a Tully? And
well, I mean, it could be like that we don't know, like it could be that she just slightly changed her name, I don't know. But yeah, Alayaya has a bet that Dancy will get off with Tyrion in the next couple of weeks, and has to have the red hair. Is that exclusively like a wildling Tully thing? That do we see it in many other places?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. It's just no particular reason. It just struck me that we don't see red hair that often, except for those situations. And yeah, Tyrion gets Lancel to be a spy for him, and I loved how he turned that. It was a lot. That was basically the crux of this chapter for me. There's not much. The big problem here, of course, is that he's fallen in love with Shay. It's massive.
Yeah. And the he's believing his own hype now, Tyrion. So it went from the previous chapter where he's insecure about thinking that everybody's laughing at him, even though they're not laughing at him, they're laughing at Alistair Thorne, to the end of this chapter being, it's real, all of it, it's real. The woman, the power, the city, it's all, you know, and he feels that he can manipulate Cersei. He gets something, you know, he kind of gets this weird like kick out of thinking that he's manipulating Cersei, and he's loving it. It doesn't surprise me, because I remember first time I sort of listening to theories and things, people saying, oh yeah, you know, maybe Tyrion wants to take the throne for himself, and I'm like, I've never got the sense of that at all, apart from that little bit there in that
Yeah.
chapter where it's like, yeah, he's loving it, he's absolutely loving it. But there's lots of stuff there underneath that, you know, the thought of Tysha, that, you know, she haunts him. This memory of this just haunts him, and he feels like Shay's almost a sticking plaster to get rid of this kind of haunting memory that he's had of Shay for such a long time. He knows that he needs to play Cersei at her own game, and this kind of motivates him. You know, it does. It kind of gets him going. I said to you before we started, I think, to a text message earlier as well this week of I'd forgotten how pompous and entitled and how much of a annoying little twerp Lancel is at this stage. But then again, he's 16. The position that is, and it's just that very, very the quickest rise and fall for anyone is Lancel. I mean, what within the space of a couple of weeks, it's like, yeah, I've made it. Oh my god,
yeah.
You know, it's yeah.
But that's the irony of this chapter. It's like, well, you know, Lancel has been at this for over a year or more. He bloody killed a king, and he's now sleeping with the queen, and you just very quickly like pull the rug out from under him and just change the course of his life. And yet now you think that you're in an untouchable position. Look how quickly things have changed for Lancel in the space of a few minutes. Like, you are a Lancel in the making. Yeah. So that's for me, that's the point of that chapter, that it's like, you know, your dick is going to get you in big trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that's the big problem here. And yeah, it's funny as well, because we have a serious drop off now of Tyrion chapters. I think we only have 3 left. I think there's only 10.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm pretty sure there's only 10 or 11. So, you know, the bulk of his chapters now, we're just not quite at the halfway mark, but like they drop off as far as I can remember. Maybe I'm misremembering that now. Can anyone correct me if I'm wrong? But I'm pretty sure they drop off pretty... yeah, because we've 10 Arya chapters for sure.
Let me see if I can...
Sorry, I'm wrong. We've 15 Tyrion chapters. I'm completely wrong. It's to Arya I was thinking of. Yeah, Arya chapters drop off. Tyrion chapters, actually, yeah. He's our Ned.
Yeah, we where are we up to now? So the next chapter is chapter 30. Is that right? Yeah, we get a big... We get, from what I can see, towards the end of the book, we get quite a pickup on Sansa chapters.
Sorry, it's Arya I was thinking of, not Tyrion. We would drop off of Arya chapters. We've only 4, I think, left. Yeah. So after next week, we'll only have 2 Arya chapters left. So we'll have a drop off of hers. But yeah, no, it's 15 Tyrion chapters. We have a lot of Tyrion left. So yeah, that's all I have for Tyrion. I don't really have much for this chapter at all. There's not.
No.
It's very much of a personalized chapter. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. And you can always send them to me in advance, like Sunny did as well. Thanks a million, Sunny. And
or just leave them in the comments of the video once it goes. It just goes it immediately gets converted to your channel. Yeah.
Which you'd probably, before I get a chance to change the thumbnail, it's probably one of us mid rant. Yeah. Or the cat. The cat trying to get in. Yeah. Yeah, that's next week. We are on Friday again here. It's changing to Friday just for 1 week only.
Yes.
8 o'clock. And yeah, maybe you'll prefer Fridays. Probably Sunday though is nice, I guess, to do the chapters on.
Yeah, I like the Sunday vibe. Yeah. And so if you are following us, that's quite a few chapters to get in before Friday. We've got like 8 chapters to whiz through. I'm going to be doing like a couple of chapters a night.
Yeah. They're shorter. Yeah. We have a few long chapters. That Theon chapter was quite a long one. Thank you, Sunny. Thank you very much. I'm sorry you'll be at work on Friday. I'm I'm not sure where you're based, but it'll be 8 p.m. UK time. Unfortunately, I just don't have reliable internet in Ireland. I can't leave it. Oh, that's your cat.
Yeah.
I thought you were objecting to my unreliable internet. So that's it, everybody. Ian wants a cat thumbnail.
See what we can do.
Yeah. So yeah, so Arya 7 to Arya 8 next week on Friday at 8. And you're in South Florida, Sonny. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully the weather is nice there. So yeah, next stream Friday 8 p.m. on my channel. Same cat channel. Get it? It works. It is Sir Pounce. Yeah.
Yeah.
Secret Targaryen. Hashtag silent sister. Hashtag not so silent sister, actually.
Yeah. This one isn't silent at all. No.
Yeah. Thank you, Pisan. Thank you, Sonny. Thank you, Ion. Thank you, AU. Thanks, Mr. C. Thanks, Asha. And thank you, Claire.
No problem.
Will see you all next Friday.
See you
Bye,
Friday.
everybody. And happy reading.